when the veterans complained that the minister had missed their meeting, he said, quote, "I'm not going to stand here and listen to that," and he stormed out. Excellent. How is that acceptable to the Prime Minister? Will the Prime Minister do the right thing, apologize himself, and fire that incompetent?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has apologized for the events of yesterday, but the fact of the matter is that this government and this Minister have increased services for our veterans without precedent.
More calls for the resignation of Veterans Affairs Minister Julian Fantino today after yesterday's heated confrontation with a group of veterans, which we showed you live on this program, their press conference. The veterans were angry with the minister for missing a meeting with them. They're protesting the closure of several Veterans Affairs offices that will happen, 8 of them across the country, on Friday. The minister apologized for missing the meeting. He actually tried to call the vets on the phone today, but the vets have rejected the apology. Should the Veterans Affairs Minister resign? Is the government doing enough to respond to the needs of the concerns of Canada's vets? Joining me now, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. He's a veteran himself, and he was with those vets just before that meeting with Minister Fantino. Aaron O'Toole is here. The NDP Veterans Affairs critic Peter Stauffer is here, and the Liberal Defence critic Joyce Murray is here. Thanks for all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Toole, you were at the meeting with the veterans yesterday. I want to show you what World War II vet Roy L'Amour, who I spoke with, said after your meeting with them, so you can respond. Here it is.
Go to a meeting where the individual didn't show, and ended up brought 3 veterans, politicians, to argue against the rest of us. That's a damn disgrace. 3 veterans and they couldn't give us the honest answers that we asked for.
Mr. O'Toole, I spoke with these veterans, and some of them are going to be on the show later. They've said they felt disrespected. They've rejected the apology, and they had a verbal confrontation with the minister. What's their response?
Now, listen, Evan, it's really unfortunate how everything went yesterday. The minister apologized for it, but I was at that meeting because I asked to be at that meeting. I was not put there because the minister couldn't come or anything like that. I met with some of these veterans the first time they came to Ottawa as part of a PSAC event. When the minister was going to be late, his staff said clearly, the minister's going to be late, could he maybe meet you and have dinner later? But the veterans said they had a press conference and a meet and greet later. And it's too bad. The confrontation that happened later on was really too bad. But I do think it's important to state here that there was a series of scheduled events yesterday that some passionate veterans that I have a lot of respect for were at, but the entire day was orchestrated by the PSAC union, and they had a press conference to make and then a meet and greet with PSAC and didn't want to meet with the minister later. It's unfortunate he was late at Cabinet.
But Mr. O'Toole, are you suggesting these veterans from Afghanistan, from World War II, are pawns of a union PR stunt?
Evan, the original PSAC launch took place last year when the House wasn't sitting. They invited all MPs. I went. I happened to be in Ottawa. And I asked Mr. Clark a question at that event, which was essentially a media event by PSAC. And I said, how can we make this change impact you less? Because you have to remember, these offices don't deliver services to our veterans. We're expanding services. We need to do more and are trying to do more in mental health, a whole range of issues. The standalone offices are only access points. My area of Durham, and I said this to the veterans when I met with them last year, my area of Durham, which is larger than any of these 8 cities, has never had a Veterans Affairs officer.
But
under the new program, they have 4 offices.
But hang on, listen, this is important. I've talked to these vets, and I'm going to ask them the same question. Are you suggesting that their concerns are not as valid as they're saying, because you're saying they're simply pawns of a union issue to protect union jobs, and that their concerns that they're here to voice and that they did at that press conference are not valid because what? Because they're part of an orchestrated union event?
I think it would be important to ask for details on the day. Schedule, there was 2 press conferences. The only question there was 2 veterans in the room, the only question they had for us is, are you going to reverse the decision? And we said no. And then we wanted to discuss the new 17 offices we're opening for operational stress. We had somewhat of a positive discussion at times with all the veterans, including Mr. Clark, who a few months ago I phoned at home to tell him that we were keeping a Veterans Affairs official in the Service Canada office. There was a veteran there that has been accessing services online. So, we had a bit of a discussion on how the offices themselves are only one way to access the benefits. The offices themselves, and it's important, Evan, don't deliver care.
Okay, so I want to bring the opposition, but just quickly, will Minister Fantino step down or resign because of the way he treated those veterans?
The minister apologized today for missing the original meeting and how the subsequent meeting went. But like I said, when his office asked to meet with them later, even to meet for dinner, they had a schedule they were following and said they couldn't meet him. They already had a press conference planned. So my impression, Evan, having worked on these issues since I left the Canadian Forces, working with veterans, is that they had that press conference planned and they already had their answer ready for the press conference. That's just my impression.
Okay, well, I'll relay that to the vets in a minute. Mr. Stauffer, what's your take? Do you think Minister Fantino's apology is enough? Should it be accepted?
Well, I'm not the one he's apologizing to. It is the veteran community themselves, and they're the ones who decide whether or not to accept an apology. I have to admit that I'm pleased that the minister did apologize and understand that his actions were wrong yesterday. But as I said in the House of Commons today, Evan, in 16 and a half years as a member of Parliament, through 10 different Veterans Affairs ministers from 2 different political parties, yesterday was the lowest of the low. And that's why